Hi, Capstone Community Action employees. This is Prudence Sullivan, and I'll be facilitating your training on how to do stakeholder interviews for your strategic planning process called SOAR. The recording today will be talking about giving you an overview of the SOAR methodology around strength-based strategic planning, the journey that you're on, and the process that we're going to go through. Also, to really build your capacity to conduct and capture appreciative discovery and dream interviews. And so that's a big part of what we'll be talking about today, your role in data collection through the interview process. And thirdly, to deepen your understanding of how we will use SOAR, strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results methodology to build a strength-based strategic plan for Capstone Community Action. As a reminder, you can see your really powerful mission and vision that you have as an organization and the actions and programs that you put in place to sustain that mission and vision. With that as our platform, our intention in using this methodology is to really lift up and discover what it is that you do as an organization, why do you do it, and what makes you unique and powerful in providing these services to Vermonters. We're going to discover what our individual strengths are and how we contribute to the success of the organization. We're also going to look at, look back at our history, both the past and present. What are the foundational core strengths that we have as an organization to really understand the root cause of those successes that we've had in the past to be the platform for us to dream into the future. We're going to look at what is it our stakeholders are asking for today, but also what will they be asking for tomorrow so that we can exceed, not just meet expectations, but exceed their expectations. One of the critical determining factors for choosing this SOAR methodology it's a way to engage our whole system in co-creating our future. Our program participants, our board members, our employees, our partners, the state, and our communities, and really co-creating the vision of the future and the strategies and processes and structures that we want to put in place to achieve that vision. This is a quote from the founder of Appreciative Inquiry that says, "We live in the world our questions create." And at the fundamental level, SOAR, strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results, strategic planning methodology, is a series of questions. When we look at our strengths, we're going to look at what is it we can build on. Opportunities, or what are our stakeholders asking for, both today and tomorrow. Aspirations, what do we deeply care about? We may have hundreds of opportunities, but what are those things that we're going to hone our focus in on, where we know we can make the biggest difference in Vermonters' lives? And results, how will we know we are succeeding? What are those key indicators of success that allow us to know those programs, strategies, initiatives that we've put in place are making a positive difference? So what's this journey that we're on over the next few months together as we develop our strategic plan? The first piece is to help discover what is the best of the past and present, so that when we imagine the future, we're igniting that from a place of what our strengths are and a really key understanding of the root causes of those successes. During the preparation phase, between now and June 20th, we're going to be gathering insights and data from stakeholders. And so that's part of the invite for you today, is to understand what role you can play in doing that data gathering and insights. We also have a team that's continuing to work on communication plans, logistics for the SOAR event, collecting data, both its internal data, but also looking out across the globe as to what are other organizations doing that are having breakthroughs in this arena, and creating a really customized, detailed design for our work together to accomplish the most we can on that June 20th session. So we have our preparation phase, and June 20th we'll come together with 100 plus both employees and our partners and participants and board members and other stakeholders to really go through the SOAR process, to lift up our strengths, to look at opportunities, to hone those into aspirations, to actually do design work of prototypes around how do we accelerate the things that we do well today so we can do more of it, and what are some of those new innovative things that we want to do to meet the future needs. After the 20th, the work will be to communicate what came out of the day, to develop that strategic plan, and both strategic plan for the organization, but also what are our functional tactical plans to achieve that, and to launch multi-horizon innovation project teams that are focused on continuing to leverage what we do well today, and to teams that will focus on what do we need to do to innovate for our future. So that's the journey that we're on over the next several months together. Appreciative inquiry is often called the 4D process. As we determine what it is we're going after, what do we aspire to achieve, sits in the middle. And then step 2 is to do discovery work and dream work. And that's what we're going to talk about today, using this interview process to discover what is it that, when we're at our best, what is the root cause of those successes, to dream about the future. And then when we come together on the 20th, we'll do our design work of, if this is our dream and vision for 2022, what are we going to put in place to make sure we achieve that vision? And how do we deliver and deploy where we're continuing to learn and improvise and accelerate our successes and sustain what's working today? So let's look at the interview process. Each of you are going to be asked to participate in an interview and also to do 2 interviews. And so I love this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that says, "I think at a child's birth, if a mother could ask a fairy godmother to endow it with the most useful gift, the gift would be curiosity." So this interview process is a chance for you to both be curious about your own high point moments and successes in the organization, and also to ask that question to others. All right, so let's jump in and take a look at what this interview process is and what how it's run. So, visions of a better world. You each will receive an interview guide, and this will be part of your introduction as you sit down to interview either a colleague or one of your partners or participants in Capstone Community Action's programs. Imagine an organization that is a catalyst for building a more just and equitable world. This organization is collaborative, visionary, and effective. People within the organization are energized and inspired by possibilities for a better world. When work is in service to a larger purpose, it is life-giving and compelling. People want to contribute. We value your insights, ideas, energy, and hope as Capstone Community Action constructs its future strategic plans through collaboration, shared understanding, and commitment to action. So I'm going to review these 3-part questions that are part of your discovery and dream interviews. So you will read people that kind of opening statement, and then you'll read through these questions, giving people time to reflect. There's also a handout to give them that has the questions, and then you'll proceed to interview either your colleague or your external stakeholder. So the first part is strengths. What can we build on? We're going to ask people, what was their high point moment? Recall a high point or peak experience for you with Capstone Community Action, or our work helping to end poverty and create prosperity in our communities. Describe this experience. Tell your story. That's the most important piece of this, is that you want people to tell a specific story, not a generalization, but a specific story that they can lift up as a high point or peak experience. And then you're going to help them unpack that. What was happening? Who was involved in that? How did you participate? In what ways was it energizing and valuable to you? In your high point story, what are the things that you value most about yourself and the intention and nature of Capstone Community Actions and its work? So that's the part 1. Part 2 is lifting up. What are the opportunities? What are stakeholders asking for? What are our participants, our partners, our communities, our employees asking for in the future? So as you look into the future of Capstone Community Action, what opportunities do you see? And on your interview guide, we've actually added to that kind of the 4 distinct areas of focus. What are stakeholders asking for in regards to meeting basic needs, building sustainable communities, activation and empowerment, and changing lives? And then as you look at the sea of opportunities, what do you see there that really excites you, that looks like it's an opportunity that we should raise up into an aspiration? Part 3 of the interview is, what do we deeply care about? So imagine that you wake up from a deep sleep and it's 2022. Capstone Community Action has won the Governor's Award for Social Justice Leadership, and their remarks include Capstone Community Action impact within our communities. As you're hearing the Governor's remark, these are the things that you're listening for. What is happening that is new, changed, or better? Describe some of the most exciting initiatives that are happening. What new partnerships have been formed? With whom and why? What successes from today have we leveraged or expanded? And question 5, as we begin to design the ideal system of the future, what are the 1 or 2 of the smallest things we could do right away that might have the largest impact? Part 2 of that question is, what is the one bold thing, something that can be done that would be a game changer for Capstone Community Action? So 3 parts. Part 1 is our strengths. What can we build on? Part 2, our opportunities. What are our stakeholders asking for? What are their future needs? And part 3, what do we deeply care about? Beginning to picture out into the future, where is it we want to be and what will be going on 3 years from now. So we think about awesome interviewers. You might have seen someone on TV that's an awesome interviewer. You might have listened to someone on radio. One of my favorites is Terry Gross on National Public Radio. And one of the things that you'll notice with an awesome interviewer is their ability to authentically listen by helping people dive deeper into their own story, by asking those follow-on questions. Tell me more about that. How is it that you showed up in that? Give me more information. You're so excited. I can see you light up. When did that happen? Tell me more about the other people that were involved in that. An awesome interviewer helps the person they're interviewing discover more parts of their story. And so that's your job, is to ask the questions and listen in an authentic way where you're lifting up and learning about the root causes of their successes, their high point moments, their dreams for the future, what they see as the biggest opportunities, so that we can use that as a platform to dream about the future. This is a quote by David Cooper-Ryder. It says, "Human systems grow and move in the direction of what we study most deeply and frequently and authentically." So what you notice about the Appreciative Inquiry process is we are lifting up high points and successes to understand those at a deep level, to use those as a platform to move into the future. And so it's not that everything has to be, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for, when is it we've been at our best? When have we taken breakdowns and turned them into breakthroughs? When have we had our highest level of impact? How did we show up? How did others show up? So that we can understand that, so we can use that as we plan for the future to make sure we're taking those insights and learnings forward. So I'd invite you, after you do either you do your first interview or you've been interviewed, to do some reflection about what was different about this experience. What I can tell you is that it's a highly energizing experience. People that did the interview process as part of the training had the opportunity to do that in a group setting. So they learned things about colleagues that they've known for years that they never knew before. That they felt energized by both being the interviewer, but also energized by being the interviewee. Part of what we know, when Appreciative Inquiry was first identified as a methodology 30 years ago, we didn't have the science that we have today, where today we can actually measure people's brains to see what is going on when people are in a threatened state or in a positive reward state. When people are in a threatened, kind of problem-focused mode, they are anxious, they think less clearly, they have reduced memory, and they are a poorer performer. And so many of our strategic planning processes of the past, a process like SWOT, we spend so much time looking at what's wrong and what's the root cause of our mistakes and what's not working, that we get people into a state of being when we ask them to dream about the future, they can't even look to the future because they're so discouraged and depleted by the methodology of looking at what's wrong. Versus when we're in a solution focus, we actually, as human beings, are more focused. We're more willing to collaborate both internally and outside the organization. So many of the opportunities that we have in front of us won't be solved by a single person, but will be solved through collaboration with participants, with partners, with communities, with colleagues. And when we're in that solution-focused mode, we're also more creative. And what I particularly like is that we have increased resilience. It's not that things will go perfect, but when we're in this solution-focused mode, we're more willing to go back after what it is we've co-created and dreamed, and want to work harder to have that put into action to overcome things that might get in our way. So your role. Our ask is that each staff member and board member complete input summaries, complete 2 interviews of external stakeholders, and participate as an interviewee in a interview. That you do your interviews and that you have them inputted into a Survey Monkey so that we can collect that data and look for themes throughout the interviews by June 11th. So the ask is that each of you participate as an interviewee in an interview, and that you also do 2 external stakeholder discovery and dream interviews. We have set targets for the numbers of pre-interviews that we want to have. We want to have our partners be 30% of the 30 partner interviews, 150 staff interviews. So we want everyone to participate either prior to the SOAR or in the SOAR in a discovery and dream interview. Participants of our programs, 150. Board members, state legislators and staff, 10. And so that we seek to have plus or minus 350 pre-interviews where that information will come into the room the day of our SOAR. At the SOAR itself, we also want to have a high mix of our stakeholder groups. You see that on the right-hand side here. So who's your point person? There are employees from Capstone Community Action that are on the core planning team. You'll see them listed here. And so as you determine who you will be interviewing, who are going to be the external stakeholders that you want to interview, you want to let your contact person know so that we can track how we're doing against our targets for percentages of stakeholders being engaged both in the pre-interview process and attending the SOAR session. And they'll be the ones who load this into the Excel spreadsheet, but they just need names and emails from you. So, just want to spend a couple minutes before we wrap up on looking even deeper as to what are the critical factors for awesome interviewers. And so part of it will be to make sure that you're grounded in the questions in the process before you sit down with a person, right? And just have, sometimes just breathe in and breathe out. It's like, my job right now is to be inquisitive, curious, and an amazing listener. You want to build rapport with the person, put them at ease about what this process is and what it's going to be used for. Let them know that the information that you collect will never be aligned to a person's name, that the information will be confidential, but it's really, what we're really looking for are those high point stories, those insights about the future that they can bring and share with us as an organization. You will have a copy of the questions that you can hand the interviewee. But as you hand it to them, we will still invite you to read the questions aloud. It makes a big difference for them to hear the questions read aloud by you. And then you can give them a few minutes to think about their answers. They could jot down some notes on the handout so they're getting ready for their interview. And then as you go through the interview, take down notes, particularly when you hear they've given a great example of a strength of the organization. If they have a quote that you say, whoa, I want to make sure I get that down just right. Or if they have a compelling story. And so write down the highlights and themes. It doesn't need to be word for word, but just enough information so that you've got the what I would call the maple syrup. You've boiled that down to one of those critical things that we want to capture as an organization, so that we'll have that as we do our strategic planning together. Also, I invite you at the end of the interview to reflect on, how did that go? How did you bring your strengths to that interview? What new things did you discover? Right? What made this experience work for the interviewee? And how can it be, your next one, even be more valuable and insightful? As I said earlier, the thing you want to really lift up is their stories. Not to talk in generalizations, for them to come up with specific stories, examples, high point moments that they've experienced. Because we know stories connect the whole brain and the heart, and that they build and foster relationships. The conversation and interview you have with this person will bring your relationship to an even deeper and more understanding level. And it's through those stories about high point moments that we begin to suspend notions of why things can't happen and begin to look at how might we. Probing questions that you can utilize, and note that your guide is there's a set of questions there, but you can go off script. Those are built in there to help you with the process, but you might have to ask additional questions that make sense in the situation. And so, what do they think made this work? Tell me more about it. Tell me more about the role you played. Tell me about the circumstances. Really helping them unpack that story. This isn't a dialogue for them to tell their story and then you to jump in with yours. It's really an interview. You're interviewing them about their story and understanding it in a deep level. If somebody can't think of an answer to a question that you pose, either try a different way of saying it, and also you can just let it go. Maybe it just doesn't fit their frame of reference. And continually be feeding back to people what you're hearing, both the words that you're hearing, but also the feelings that are going with that. Oh, you sound so excited about that. Sounds like it was so rewarding, right? So they know that you're hearing their story at multiple levels. And thank them for their time. This is a gift that they're giving you by sharing these insights and ideas for our future. So you want to be taking notes, and then soon after you do the interview, to put that into SurveyMonkey. And so the SurveyMonkey has a series of questions. You're going to fill in that information. I would do it within 24 hours of doing the interview while it's still fresh in your mind. And so you'll see a link. You'll be sent a link to that SurveyMonkey. And if you need any support, your core team member can support you if you have any trouble with it. But we've really found it to be a wonderful, easy platform to collect this information, and one that's user-friendly for you. So what if the interview turns the conversation negative, where people talk about what's not working? Behind every what's not working is a dream of what they wanted to have happen. So you can ask people, what is it? So that, that was frustrating, didn't work out the way you wanted to do. Tell me about if it was working the way you think it could work. If it was working at its best, what would you see? What would have happened? What would relationships have been like? What role would you play in that scenario? What role would other people play in that scenario? Behind, the quote at the bottom here is, a problem is only an unrealized dream. What's the dream? If there's something that hasn't worked out the way people wanted, what is it they wanted to have happen? What would it have looked like? If people want to see the questions in advance, we don't encourage that. We invite them to give them the questions, read them through, give them time to think about it, but you don't want people overthinking this and doing hours of preparation for this 30-minute interview. You want to review the questions out loud, read them out loud, give them a hard copy of the questions, some time to reflect, and then dive into the interview. If they want to bring someone else along, let's say English is a second language, and they would, they feel more comfortable if they had somebody with them, that's fine. Have them bring that person along and engage them in the process. If people say they don't have time for a live interview, but they wouldn't mind filling out a survey, this isn't, that's not the purpose of this. And so I would just gratefully or respectfully decline and tell them that they'll, we continue to keep them informed about the process, but this is really about having a live interview. So here's the timeline. Encourage you to, in the next few days, to really think about who is it that you're going to have as your external stakeholder interviews. Target who those people are. Let your SOAR core team member know that so they can start to keep track of how we're doing on our stakeholder mix. And think about who is it you're curious about? Who would you like to learn more about? Right? Can you really use these 30 to 40-minute interviews as a way to have a deeper understanding and a celebration of the high impact that you make as an organization and as individuals. So this is a gift that you can give yourself by really taking the time to understand at a deep level, where are we making the biggest difference and what's the root cause of our successes, and how could we leverage the foundation of what we do incredibly well today, and what are those things we want to add into the future. So the next couple of days, think about who is it that you want to interview. By June 7th, we want you to complete your interviews and have the information loaded into the SurveyMonkey so the core team has time to sift through and lift up the themes, because we'll be bringing those themes into our SOAR session on June 20th. Excuse me. So here's your core team members, people that are on the core team in the different roles. So you have a communications team, and Brian's heading that with Morgan and Yvonne as his team members. Data collection, you got Tony, Linda A and Linda F and Ramsey are on that team. Logistics, how to make this whole thing happen. Sonia with Liz, Cheryl, and Annie. And then the design team is Sue, Karen, and Prue. All of these team members are happy to answer questions, get your feed forward, tell us what you like about it. If you have suggestions on how to modify questions or things we might want to add, we're looking for those things. This is a continuous process improvement. As we go through this process, we look for you to share your insights and energy to make this the most valuable process it can be. Thank you.